Before we start this show, just a word from our sponsor, 20 by 20 Apparel. Founded in 2015, 20 by 20 Apparel brings original tributes to pro wrestling's classic arenas, moments, and events. They look to spotlight the bloopers, bleeps, and body slams along with the biggest, smallest, strangest, and strongest that pro wrestling has had to offer. Along with their awesome line of pro wrestling apparel, they do offer many services. In the world of wrestling, there are hundreds of shirts, promotions, flyers, social media accounts, and ads. Don't get lost in the sea of parody shirts and display fonts. They can provide professional graphic design services at a reasonable price. 20 by 20 also hand screen prints all the tees in-house. If you would like to discuss possible run of tees, posters, koozies, foam fingers, or whatever, drop them a line. Go to 20 by 20 Apparel. That's the number 20x, the number 20 apparel.com. Now, let's get to the show.
Fresh is the word.
I'm Jim Duggan, got long wood for plenty hoes. I keep it fresher than fresh, but you already know. You suckers bummy, I'm money, I got a ton of flows. My weed loud like a motherfucking thunder roll. Your shit quiet like you ballin' on a budget though. We see your kicks and we laugh and yellin' what are those. You see me shining like a suit on puffy. You know my grindin' shit is too strong, buddy. That's why the dude call money. I be stuntin' like it's nothing at all. Cause it's nothing to me, it's probably something to y'all. Trying to smoke like me, then come and fuck with your dog. Got a closet full of kicks, you can't cop at the mall. And I'm fresher than the freshest, you can tell it's in my essence. Bitch, you see the way I'm rapping, yes I do this shit to death. I tell I'm running out of breath, I tell somebody cut a check. But either way you know it's fresh, and either way you know it's fresh. Fresh, we fresh. Fresh, 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 goddammit, we fresh. Fresh, fresh, goddammit, we so damn fresh.
Welcome to the Fresh is the Word podcast. I'm your host, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier. And on Fresh is the Word, we like to deliver wisdom through great stories from the minds of bright creatives of pop culture. Through those stories, we like to dissect the journey of our guests and present actionable lessons and advice for our listeners, no matter what career or avenue of artistry they pursue. And before we get into this episode, I want to give a shout out to Knox Money, Bang Belushi, and Foulmouth for the theme music for Fresh is the Word. And if you would like to support the podcast, you can always go to freshisthepodcast.com and just share any of the links for any of the episodes on any of your social media platforms. And also, you can subscribe to Fresh is the Word pretty much anywhere that podcasts are streamed. And that includes Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, pretty much everywhere. And please rate and review, especially on Apple Podcasts. It will definitely help out the show. If you want to contact me, you can always reach me by email at djkfresh@gmail.com, or you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at KFresh is the word, and on Facebook at facebook.com/KFresh. And you can also follow Fresh is the Word on Twitter at Fresh is the Word, and that's is with an IZ, Instagram at Fresh is the Word Podcast, and Facebook at facebook.com/Fresh is the Podcast. And this is episode 147. The guest for this episode is Miles VanMeter, the social media and events manager for Vault of Midnight Detroit comic book store. During our chat, we talked about what Vault of Midnight has in store for Free Comic Book Day on May 4th at their 3 locations in Detroit, Ann Arbor, and Grand Rapids, along with the store's connection to their communities, collaborating with neighboring businesses in the city, and what they've been doing to make Vault of Midnight a welcoming environment for everyone. For more information about what they're going to be doing on Free Comic Book Day, there will be links in the show notes for this episode at freshisthepodcast.com, and you can also go to vaultofmidnight.com. All right, let's get on to the interview with Miles VanMeter from Vault of Midnight Detroit. All right, we're down here at the Vault of Midnight Detroit. Introduce yourself.
My name is Miles VanMeter. I run the social media and events here at Vault of Midnight Detroit.
Cool. I love Vault of Midnight, man. There's over, the years and the decades, like comic book shops there's a ton of stigmas, but I feel like even today, Vault to Midnight sort of like kills all those stigmas. You come in there, you see people of different types, you see men, you see women, people of different ages. There's a cool vibe. Everybody's friendly. There's cool music going on. Talk about the vibe that you guys want to set here.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of what we do is that we're trying to break the stigma of that, and we want comic books to be for everybody. They are for everybody, and they should be presented that way. So we have our all three of our stores are in downtown locations that are easily accessible, and we have this nice inviting environment that we have comic books for everybody. We have board games for everybody. And that's part of like what we're doing with Free Comic Book Day, which is coming up on May 4th, which is it's like this one-day distillation of what we do year-round. This is something that anybody can come to, and we can introduce a free comic book to them, and they can see who we are and what we do.
Yeah, let's talk about Free Comic Book Day. Kind of, for people that don't know what that is, what was the idea behind it? Do you know how it got started, basically, and talk about what you guys are going to be doing here?
Yeah, Free Comic Book Day started about 16, 17 years ago, right around the time. What was the big movie then? Like, was it the first Spider-Man movie? I think
something like that.
Yeah. And it's always the first Saturday of May. That's a good way to remember when Free Comic Book Day is. But it started out as something that the publishers, the distributors, and the retail spaces of comic book stores could all get together and try to find a way to push comic books to people that don't normally read comic books. And that's exactly why the holiday exists. It's also a day, it doubles as a day for people that love comic books already to celebrate them even more, or to share them with people that they, like, hey, I'm going to bring you to Free Comic Book Day. Like, this is my testament to what I love,
Right.
And that's what we want to give to those loyal people that come to our comic book store all the time.
Yeah, everybody kind of sets up their own events, their own stores, but what is Vault to Midnight doing?
What we're doing at our store at the Detroit shop this Saturday is we're gonna have DJ RX78. He's kind of like our resident DJ. He's awesome. He spins. But he likes to spin like a mix of hip hop with anime and pop culture stuff. He's really cool. He's really good at that. So yeah, he's done our events the past couple of years. We also have local comic book creators that will be in the shop selling, slinging their comic books. People like Andrew Buck and Haley Stone, Nick Cuckway, who does Detroit Mecha Police. Like, these are all really cool local people that we want to support. We're also showing movies across the street at the Skillman Branch Library. We're on Library Street, and
right across the street.
Yeah, we have a good relationship with them. It just makes sense to get all our neighbors involved. So we have the library screening a superhero medley of animated superhero cartoons, and we're really stoked to have them involved as well. But most importantly, we're going to be slinging free comic books. We're 3 comic books for every person, and if you come in costume, you get an extra comic book. Nice. And we thought that was a great way to get people, to celebrate it even more, to get excited. People love dressing up as their favorite superheroes. So,
for the people who don't necessarily go to the comic book stores that you're inviting out for this event, sort of what should they expect? If they're a little leery about coming into the store, what's sort of like the do's and don'ts of just coming in and just coming in and experiencing it. Do they put their anxieties to ease?
Well, I think for a lot of people, maybe it is. A lot of people haven't been to a comic book store, so they don't. Yeah, you're right. They don't know what to expect. So somebody walks into a comic book store like ours, and like I said before,
there'll probably be a lot of people coming in and out. So it might be a little bit like, oh shoot, there's all these people here.
Yeah, it is a little daunting. You see this huge line waiting outside the door, people waiting to get their free comic books. People want to be first in line. It is a lot to take in. But really, I think it doesn't take long for people to pick up on the atmosphere of Free Comic Book Day,
Right.
and that it is just a fun party. Like the way I like to explain it is, in simple terms, I like to call it a comic book block party, and people really dig that. It clicks with them, like, oh, okay, I get it. Like that's fun, that's cool. It's not just a little comic book store shindig. Like this is something that anybody can come to. You don't have to be a comic book store. A regular customer or something. Like this is something for everyone. So I think the second you explain it to somebody, they just automatically they get it, and I think that's cool. It's all about just spreading the word about what I say is our favorite holiday.
Right.
Yeah.
Even outside of Free Comic Book Day, when somebody's just coming into the store, maybe they got the little itch to want to check out comic books. It could be because of the movies that are coming out.
Oh, sure.
Could be anything. And to me, Vault to Midnight reminds me of like the quintessential record stores back in the day when you could ask people like, okay, I like this, and then they'll just throw a bunch of stuff at you to listen to. When somebody comes in like that, when they have little to no knowledge, but they're interested, how do you kind of ease them into to recommend something for them?
I often it's a lot easier than you think. There are staples that you can just put in somebody's hand and you just explain it to them, like give them your one sentence pitch, and they love it because it does remind them of their favorite HBO show or their favorite show on FX, or maybe it is something that they want to get more into. They want to get more into X-Men, and you're giving them a classic story. Often I'm just showing them something from a creator that I like. And it's really awesome to see somebody come in the next day and just say, I need more. I loved that. What's the next thing?
Right.
And that's rewarding because you're sharing this art that you love. And that's something that we like to do all the time. And that's that's why Free Comic Book Day exists. And it's funny that you bring up record shops too, because Record Store Day was actually modeled after Free Comic Book Day.
Right.
Yeah. Record shops saw what comic book stores are doing. They're like, if comic book stores can do it, we can do that.
Oh, definitely.
Obviously, they don't give away stuff, but they have exclusive stuff that comes out on that day, which is just like Free Comic Book Day. Free Comic Book Day, we have. The joke that you tell people, like, oh, it's Free Comic Book Day, and they go, oh, so any of these comics are free? And I'm like, no, we actually have exclusive comic books that are only available on that day, and they're not available for purchase any other time. You can only get them on Free Comic Book Day.
Right.
And that people, people have this a little bit of a sense of urgency to go, oh, maybe I really do have to show up on this day to get this really cool comic.
Right.
Yeah.
Earlier, you were talking about the things that you're going to be doing on Free Comic Book Day with the Skillman Library.
Sure.
That that begs the question. How important is that the idea of community with your neighbors, with even just the cities that Vault to Midnight are in? How important is Vault to Midnight to be a part of those communities?
Oh, that's a huge part of what we do. It's something that all three stores integrate into like our game plan. We work with a lot of different people in the community, and we try to do things for them. And it's like often events that we'll run events that we're just trying to work with other people and get to know our neighbors, and they're not about making a buck.
Right.
It's we're really eager to work with Fort Street Galley coming up on June 1st for International Tabletop Day, which is another one of our annual big events.
Yeah.
But I do a regular movie night with Vault to Midnight over at Pop Offworld, which is like Detroit's premier arcade.
Right.
And we've done game nights at Queen's Bar. We've done role-playing events at Ready Player One. We've done events with the city at Beacon Park or at the Cadillac Square Park. We love just doing things with everybody, and we love that our landlords and people in the city want to work with us. They see what we're doing and they go, we want to be a part of that. Yeah.
For me, there are closer comic book stores where I live, but I love coming down here for for the staff, the the ambiance, the good music and everything. But in that, having a Volta Midnight in Detroit, I think, is a huge thing because Detroit didn't have comic book stores in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen many times where I see, young people of different color, black kids, a whole group of black kids talking about their sort of exposure in the comic books, being like, hey, I literally heard this a whole group of them, like kids saying like, yeah, I was really into comic books, but I was too scared to say anything. But then I realized my man down the street liked it, and then I realized everybody in my hood like comic books,
Yeah.
And next thing you know, we can bond over that stuff, How do you feel like it's the importance of having a store in Detroit?
Oh, it's very important. We wanted to bring this, Volta Midnight wanted to bring this experience to downtown Detroit. They realized that there wasn't anything like this in downtown Detroit, and it was something that needed to happen. At some point, even though it might, comic books might not seem like it's not bread and milk and eggs and things that you might need, but it is something, an experience that I think you go to other major cities and it's something that's there, and Detroit was lacking, but that's part of what Volta Midnight does. We like to be in a space where this isn't, we want to bring this experience to you, so it was 5 years ago. Volta Midnight put a shop in downtown Grand Rapids where there wasn't a comic book store,
right.
And they have had a huge influence on their neighborhood being there, and that's what we're trying to do here in Detroit. Having only been here for it'll be 3 years on the week of Free Comic Book Day.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, but it's important that we bring this experience to the community and to the people to show them that comic books, like this is just the running theme, is that it's comic books are for everybody, and you go to the shop and you see your friend there, and it's always really cool to see that too, often somebody will come in and they'll see an employee that they know that they haven't seen in a long time, and they'll go, oh wow, like, oh, it's so great that you're here, and they get really comfortable once they realize that there's somebody that that they know that lives in the city, that is part of the city, part of the community, working at the comic book shop.
Yeah, that's very important because right now Detroit is going through this big facelift, big revitalization downtown. There's a lot of, restaurants coming in and clothing stores, but it's great to see that there's things in the artistic realm popping up and thriving and being part of the community. How do you feel about being part of that sort of artistic community with this shop?
Oh, it's awesome. Like I said, it's very rewarding. We do get a lot of artists coming in, well-known local artists come in and buy comic books from us, and that's really cool that we're maybe influencing them, and they love that we're here. We had there was an artist convention in the shop last year, like an illustrator. I can't remember what it was called, but they came in. It was great to see all these people from other cities come in and see that there was a comic book store like this in town, and they were very impressed.
Right.
And that was really cool. But it's really cool to DJ RX78 James Easterly, who he's a really great artist. Yeah. He does more than just DJ, and he's a big fan of the shop, and that he wants to be a part of it, and that's why we're having him here for Free Comic Book Day. Seeing working with local artists is something that we love to do. We do have like a local art section here in the shop where we sell local comic books. For all of our events, we try to get local artists involved in some way, like maybe doing one of our posters for one of our events, or like we've had them for local comic shop day, which is in November, and for Free Comic Book Days in past and present. I think art plays a big part of it, even down to like we even have a mural on the back of our wall, by Seth St. Pierre, who's a really great artist that we work with.
That's how kind of like the record store culture was always like around Metro Detroit. It'd be like we have all these great music artists that are known around the world, but if you're here, man, you might run into them at Street Corner Music or Record Time back in the day. these days at UHF or Found Sound, you know, they're just there, and that's kind of how Vaults of Midnight is. You might run into.
I mean, we had a couple of weeks ago, not to drop names or anything, but we had Tristan Eaton. He popped in the shop. Who is a big? I mean, we sell all the Kid Robot stuff, which he designed.
Yeah.
He has a really awesome mural in the back alley. He's somewhat involved with the Library Street Collective. Like, he's friends with those guys.
Yeah, and shout out to his brother.
Right. His brother Matt. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was great for him to just come in the shop and buy some stuff. And we're selling his zine that he published here in the shop. So it's cool to see. He's kind of from Detroit. He's got roots here in Detroit, and it's cool to see him come visit, and cool to have a world-class artist come in the shop, and just support us,
Right. You could say that, at times the comic store culture in America can be a bit tumultuous. Some stores come and go. How do you feel like it's best these days for a comic book store to exist?
I mean, I think a lot of. I mean, we've already seen it. We're seeing comic book stores evolve. They realize that the stigma is not the bad stigma of comic shops being old, dusty, and not inviting, not friendly. Or that's something of the past. The Androids Dungeons. Those are the shops that aren't doing well. And it's because they're treating comic books like it's a necessity, and comic books, just like anything else, really not a necessity aside from food and water and all that. Like you have to treat this like anything else. And we want our stores, and other stores are picking up on this, and it's great to see it. It's great to see shops open their doors for everybody, to be more exclusive, to be more diverse, and to just be a little bit brighter, a little bit happier, and have different types of people working in these shops. Like, that makes a big difference too.
Yes.
We've had customers tell us, like, hey, it was great to see a woman behind the counter.
Yeah, definitely.
And that means a lot to us.
It does. That's what I love the most about this store, is that you go in there and you see people working there, men and women, different colors, and you're like, okay. And you hear cool music going on, and you'll be like, oh, all right, this is a hip place to be. You go to other stores, and maybe you don't see that,
Yeah, it's I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why. But like I said, a lot of stores are. Like, I kind of grew up on those stores, and there's something about it I'm a little nostalgic for. Like, I love finding a dusty box of old comics and just, digging in and finding that gem, But
that's just like record stores, too.
Right,
you're always going to still have those record stores. A bunch of dusty stuff.
Yeah.
The guy that owns it is kind of a crank, whatever. But you're still going to.
But,
And then you find that old record. Oh, man, that record. I've been looking for that for 10 years. And you kind of like. All right. I'll deal with this crankiness.
Right. But it's great. We're not the only ones doing really cool things in the comic book industry. There are a lot of cool comic book stores out there, and they're all celebrating Free Comic Book Day. We're just doing it our own style, our own brand, and we hope that we can show people what we do and what we are, and just that's what we really want to do.
Why do you feel like comic books exist? What does that give people?
Oh man, comic books exist for so many reasons. I mean, it's my favorite storytelling medium. I think it does things that movies and TV can't do.
Yeah, you can take something and go anywhere with it. Just your imagination.
Comics are so cool, and I love everything else. I love movies. I love television. I love podcasts. I love all this stuff under the sun. But comic books are just. It's a great storytelling medium, and it gets lumped up into, comic books are synonymous with superheroes. However, you can read, there's comic books about anything and everything.
Dude, anything, man, anything. It's crazy.
I always ask people, I'm like, hey, what's your favorite show? And they'll tell me Game of Thrones, or they'll tell me, maybe some crime show or something, and I go,
Yeah,
I got just the thing for you.
I got
let me
just
show
5
you.
books over here
Yeah.
just about that.
Or
you know?
people tell me Westworld, and I go, perfect example, Westworld. Ed Brubaker was a writer on that show. He writes some of the best comic books in the business.
Right.
You know?
There's always that. There's always that like this degree of separation.
Sure. Yeah.
Through anything to the comic book world. It's crazy. I love it. the imagination of some of these people are crazy. The creators out there.
Yeah, well, and you know what I think is really cool about comic books is that often, man, you don't have too many people in your way of what you're trying to do. You have a writer and you have an artist, maybe you have an inker, an editor, something like that.
You just collaborate.
But yeah, it's like this small team of people just putting out this amazing story, and you don't have too many cooks in the kitchen. You are just you're reading something pure. Often you're reading a comic book, written, drawn, inked, penciled completely. Everything by the same person, one person doing the entire comic book by themselves. Like one of my recent favorites was Aliens Dead Orbit by James Stokoe. And man, he does a great job. And he literally did everything in the book.
Wow.
Like I think he had an editor, and then that was about it. He basically, he did this whole thing by himself. It was published by Dark Horse. It's an amazing alien story. But that's something that you don't see in TV or cinema. You need actors, and you need a director and a producer, and you have CEOs like telling you what to do, what you can do, what you can't do. And that's a really cool thing about comic books is that things are streamlined, and you're getting this pure art form that has maybe it's a collaboration with just a handful of people. Sometimes it's just one person.
Right.
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, here's a question of someone that works in a comic book store, sees a lot of artists, whatever. Who are some comic book creators that come to mind quickly that, maybe people don't know about?
Okay.
That you would recommend them checking out, whether they're artists or authors or whatever, who are some of your recommendations?
Oh, man. I guess, if we're not talking household names, I think Tilly Walden is somebody that I think is somebody to really focus on. She's very young, and she's publishing some great things. Friend of the shop, Carolyn Nowak, is a great... she was just nominated for 2 Eisners.
All right.
Yeah. So she's going to be... People already know her name in the industry, but there's those 2 right off the bat come to mind. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Man, it's just like the rock stars are just popping up in my head. Like, I'm just thinking like, oh, Tom King, but I'm like, oh, everybody knows who Tom King is, Yeah. Like he just did Mr. Miracle, which we fell in love with.
Oh, okay.
He's doing Heroes in Crisis, like everything he's doing. One person's name, also another rock star, is Jeff Johns.
Okay.
But he's a guy with local ties, and once you tell people that from Detroit, their eyes light up. And I go, yeah, he's written some of the best stuff in DC Comics. And people really get into that.
I feel like Michigan's had a lot of good talent come out in the comic book industry throughout history.
Sure. I mean, yeah. You have. This isn't a spoiler, however. Jim Starlin does make a cameo in the Avengers Endgame movie. He created half the characters that are in the movie, and it was really cool to see him in Avengers Endgame for him to get a little bit of that Stan Lee love, Right. It was cool to see Jim Starlin get a cameo, but yeah, he grew up in the Metro Detroit area and did a lot of great things.
Yeah.
You have I'm drawing a blank. But no, there have been so many great creators from Detroit, and yeah, we're lucky to have some really cool creators with us for Free Comic Book Day.
Right.
Having Haley Stone, she's an incredible graphic designer, illustrator. She's done a lot of cool zines. I know she's going to have some really cool new stuff on Free Comic Book Day. Nick Cuckway, who does Detroit Mecha Police, he's going to have his sequel debut on Free Comic Book Day, which is great.
Sweet.
We're going to have Matt Miner, who just put out a book with Source Point Press. I think, I can't remember the name. I think it's called No Wicked for the West.
It's something like that.
Yeah. That he's going to be at the shop, and that just came out like 2 weeks ago, that book. And then also, Andrew Buck, his stuff is just amazing. His Satanic Kill book is stellar. I have friends from New York and LA messaging me about Andrew Buck, and they're like, "Oh, do you know this guy?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know this guy." And they're like, "Man, his stuff is insane." I go, "Yeah, I love it." You know, they're like, "This is psychedelic. It's Kirby-esque," and I'm like, "Yeah,
Right.
And it's cool that people from other cities are paying attention to Andrew's stuff because he's an amazing artist. So we're very lucky to have him for Free Comic Book Day. Yeah.
Cool. One last thing before we get out of here. Where do you see Vault to Midnight going in the upcoming years?
Oh man, we expect big things. We get more and more involved with the community every day. You know, with more and more events. But also we're getting more partners. You know, like we're trying to work together with Moot's Pizza right next door, and that they're slinging amazing pizza next, doing great things there. We love it, not just because it's next door, because it actually is legitimately amazing pizza. But you know, also, yeah, we're still filling out in the neighborhood. You know, we're gonna have the tallest building in the city of Detroit, right across the street from us,
Right.
in like a year or two. It'll be completed probably in 2022. It'll be completely filled out, but I think it'll already be in use in 2011 or 2021. Sorry, so we're super excited for that. Vault to Midnight Detroit, we're not going anywhere. We're sticking around, and we don't know where this is going, but we know that it's just going up. You know, yeah.
If people online want to get more information about Vault to Midnight, where should they go?
Oh, they can go to vaulttomidnight.com, but they can find us on Instagram at Vault to Midnight or on Twitter at Vault to Midnight. You can specifically find the Vault to Midnight Detroit page at facebook.com/Vault to Midnight Detroit, or you can just search Vault to Midnight Detroit. Also, our other stores, Ann Arbor and Grand Rapids, have their own Facebook pages. Definitely, if you're in those areas, definitely check out their pages, because they're doing their own cool things for Free Comic Book Day, and they have all sorts of cool events that often we collaborate on, or sometimes they're doing their own thing as well. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And one last plug for Free Comic Book Day.
Oh yeah, Free Comic Book Day. Definitely come by Saturday, May 4th. Things run from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., but the meat of it is early on, like the first half of the day, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. We're going to have the hero or villain food van slinging their food right outside. We're going to have DJ RX78. We're going to have all the local creators I mentioned earlier. We're going to have a sales tent, free comic books, free movies. It's just a party. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait.
So that was my interview with Miles VanMeter from Vault to Midnight Detroit. Like I said before, more information about what they're going to be doing at Vault to Midnight's 3 locations in Detroit, Ann Arbor, and Grand Rapids will be in the show notes for this episode at freshasthepodcast.com. You can also go to vaulttomidnight.com. Once again, thanks for listening. Goodbye and good night.
Fresh is the word.